my name is Jordan, and I am an alcoholic. My heart will slow down. I will eventually catch my rhythm, but this is a little overwhelming. So I am very grateful to be here. I think I'm actually emotional to be here. So I'm going to trust that the right message comes out tonight, because I have no idea. I have so many things I want to say, but I have no idea what I'm actually going to get to. My sobriety date is November 17th, 2008. And so I celebrated 17 years last month. That is wild to me. Sorry.
Don't be shy.
Okay. So that's crazy to me. I cannot even imagine 17 years sober. And when I got here, I was 25, 26 when I finally got it. And I didn't picture living, into my 30s. Like, that wasn't even a thing. And I didn't have a future planned. I didn't have aspirations or motivations, like nothing. It was just getting or using the next thing, the next drink, the next whatever. So to have now been sober longer than I drank is amazing to me. So I'll start at the beginning. I was born up north to an alcoholic father and a non-alcoholic mom, but she had her own stuff. So I call my dad a business alcoholic. He was very, well-dressed and looked fancy and smelled good, but man, he could drink. And drinking was something that, I just knew he did a lot of it, and when he did it, he was actually kind of fun. Like, there was a sweet spot. Like, we'd go to Cubs games literally for the entire day, and we'd go to the bar at 10 a.m., and he brought me, and so I hung out at the bar, and then he'd be kind of grouchy all morning, and then there'd be this sweet spot where it'd be a lot of fun, and then by the time we got back to the bar after the game, now we're at a point where it was messy, and then usually the true blue horrible stuff he saved for my stepmom and stuff behind closed doors. But so when I was little, we moved over to Ohio, and so by 2, we moved to Ohio. By 4, my dad took me to meet a woman named Brenda. I went home and told my mom about it. And, we talk. And so this always blows my mind. I feel like my parents didn't think I'd grow up one day. They did a lot of stuff. I'm like, did you not think I'd remember this stuff? This is a thing. Anyways, but so, and Brenda, my mom moved out one weekend, and the next weekend Brenda moved in. And I figured out later, my dad had to make my stepmom hate my mom because it excused his behavior. It allowed it to make sense that he cheated on her. And so they hated my mother. Meanwhile, I loved my mother. So they had split custody, and when I would go to my dad's house, it was chaotic. So chaos from the beginning. Monday, Thursday, every other weekend I was at my dad's. Tuesday, Wednesday, every other weekend I was at my mom's. When I was at my dad's, I would live out of the bag from my mom's house, and I would lay on it because it smelled like her. And I missed my mom, At my dad's house, it was angry. He was still cheating on her, by the way. So Brenda found out. Dad kept cheating. For the rest of his life, to this day. I would assume, in our adult years, we knew Dad was still cheating. But Brenda would tell me about it. So as a little kid, before 8 and 9 years old, she would tell me about his escapades. So I grew up knowing men don't want wives. Men get stuck. Men don't want kids. They get stuck. And men don't actually love women. And so those were the facts of life for me. So the things that stick out about childhood, I won't go into everything. The things that stick out, I already had that alcoholic mind. And so as a little kid, one of my best memories is sleeping next to my brother and sister. They were 2 and 3 at the time, or younger. And so I was 8, 9, 10 at the time. We slept in this queen-size bed. And I remember laying on my back next to them and thinking, God, I wish I could relax like they do. I was 9. Like, what was I stressing over? But I literally was rolling through everything. And like, that's the way my brain worked. And that's eventually what I drank over. I was also a klepto. So I stole everything, anything I could get my hands on. And I'm talking kindergarten, we had cubbies. And I hated cubby clean out day. And I remember them pulling my cubby out, flipping it over, and things like ace bandages and glass seals would fall out because I simply stole it from someone else. I wanted what you had, and I didn't want to have to work for it. I deserved it. Like, I was just going to take it. And so that sense of entitlement lasted through my teen years. Somehow at 18, I knew I didn't want a felony, and I stopped. Like, that was what was in my head. But until then, I stole from every single person I met. If you were next to me, it was my foot that went over it. I mean, I was the person that was slick around every single person. So I damaged a lot of relationships that way. Around 5th grade, I asked for help from a teacher because there was some physical abuse. And I went to school one day and I asked for a fake assignment so that I could stay at my mom's house. And this whole thing erupted, and my mom ended up taking my dad to court for child abuse. My dad and my stepmom specifically. And so to clarify, like, there was some physical abuse for sure. Like, my stepmom, I never knew when she'd get angry, and I never knew how angry she'd get, and it never made sense. It never aligned with anything real. But the emotional and mental abuse was the stuff that I had to work on to this day. You know, those are the things that came up over and over again in my step work of just the damage that they did to me mentally. But so whatever happened there, I don't know, but my dad lost custody. So I really don't know if he got the charge, whatever. I have no idea. I was a kid. But I do remember sitting in the car in a parking lot and my dad looking at me, 5th grade, and telling me that I ruined his whole life. And these were the things that shaped me, you know. I mean, this is where my teen years came from. So a few years later, my mom decides we're moving to Florida. She's like, ties are finally cut, the dust settled from, you know, the separation and everything. And so we moved to Florida from Loveland, Ohio. So another little town. I did not run anywhere naked, though, I promise you. That was not a thing for me. But a little town. And then we moved to, like, outside of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And so one of the things, I was a shapeshifter. I just wanted to belong, and I didn't feel like there was anything about me that stood out, and so I gravitated towards whatever stood out about you. I wanted that to be part of my personality. And I was a smart kid. I hated being smart. I did not want to be known as the dorky kid. I was in all the smart classes. Like, I legit hated that. That was the thing I wanted least. And so it's like I tried to dumb myself down with everything else. But so we're going to Florida, and this girl pulls me aside, and she's like, you can decide right now what you want to be. And I don't know where this came from. Well, she watched me shapeshift, apparently. And so before I got to Florida, that was when I cut off all my hair and bought Doc Martens for the first time and had the big old corduroys and band tees, and like I found my personality. Luckily it fit, but what happened was when we got to Florida, like it led me into an exact niche, you know, and like I found the people that I fit with immediately, and I felt like I belonged. And that was, you know, I was always chasing that. Eventually, I met a best friend that I'd always been the kid. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm not gonna smoke. I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna do anything. Like, I said that way too often. And then I met my best friend, and we found her dad's pills, pot, and alcohol, like consecutive weekends in a row. And I will say this, I'm absolutely an alcoholic, and I will be very respectful of the traditions. I also need you to know that I was on multiple substances every single day until I got sober. continuously, and it was a lot. And I was at a point where I took anything. And as a teenager, it was more of, as soon as I found alcohol, I was no longer physically uncomfortable in my own skin. And then I could be part of, I could be in the party. And I wanted to be with the kids who all dropped out of school. I wanted to be the kids who led the tough lifestyle. Like, I chose and moved into the role of being in a world that looked exactly opposite of where I came from. And that was where I was headed. From the beginning, it was a lot. The moment we drank as much as humanly possible. The moment I touched anything else, I'll tell you one thing, this is all I'll say about pot. I thought I would smoke for the rest of my life until the day I died. I did that alcoholically. I smoked so much that I would smoke with grown men and they'd be like, Jory, you smoke too much. Like, that was always the thing. Everything I did, it was, you do too much. You need to. But I handled it. And so that was the point of pride. Like, I could do too much, and then I'm the one walking out of here. Like, I was competitive about it. I loved drinking men, out drinking the men. Like, that was a thing. Like, I'm gonna be able to drink more than you. But as a teenager, I couldn't get my hand on alcohol as much. So the reality is, the other stuff was easier. I also spent a lot of time just simply going to the drugstore and getting things that I could. So I really was a garbage can, like anything that I could get my hands on. And the thing was, it wasn't just with people. It was anytime I needed to feel differently. I started working young, and I was never sober when I worked. From the moment I started working, I was never sober. So that was a thing too. That was a point of pride. I could go to work trashed, and people knew how much I took or drank or whatever, and I functioned. And like, that was the point of pride, that like I could be there and function. And high school, a lot of different random stuff happened. There were good times. There were things like lots of concerts, lots of awesome, crazy, wild stories, going to crazy places. But there was also a lot of sneaking out in the middle of the night and hitchhiking to some random crackhead's house that like my mom doesn't know, and I'm 15, and like, what am I doing? And why is my mom not know I'm not there? Like, I did that all the time. I was suicidal at one point. I was chronically depressed, so they said, and I wore that as a badge. I explained away my sarcasm with my chronic depression. I will be funny about it then. But I was depressed, and it was, so getting through high school, the overall feeling of high school was, it was horrible for me. And then I turned 18, my senior year of high school. So I only had one F out of all of my classes. Everything else was A's. It had always been A's. I had one F, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not gonna keep going. So I dropped out my senior year of high school, because at 18, I just had a better plan. I didn't care what the normal route was. I was just gonna do it my way. And my mom was like, okay, if you're dropping out, then you can go live on your own. And that was probably one of the best things she ever did for me. So I moved into the party house, and it was awesome. We had a blast, and that was the thing, was I was partying all the time. And so that was my persona. I was partying. It's not bad. It's a party. It's fine. And I went to work. That was the only thing I was trying to do to be an adult. If I could pay my own bills and buy my own alcohol at the bar, I was fine. I did not depend on anybody else for those two things. Did I buy food? Did I buy clothes? I didn't have normal adult behaviors, but I paid my bills, so I thought I was good. And so, the partying escalated, because it was everything, anything, all the time. But the drinking was, went through, it started with the days of Mad Dog 2020 and Old E, and then moved on to doubles and got fancy, right? And then we could go to bars, and it started getting fancy, and I got all the stuff, and then I was going to drink wine like the adults. And I bought Riesling, the big old bottles, because what's the little bottle going to do? It's 3.5 glasses? And so the big old bottle of Riesling is the highest alcohol content. So that's the way the plan always worked. It was around what was going to get me the most wasted. And then I went back into Miller High Life and Oldie. But there was a time in my 20s where the partying and everything no longer looked pretty. It no longer looked fun. It never looked pretty, I'll tell you that. I was part of the opioid boom in Florida, and that's the reality. And what it did was it put my disease on fast forward, absolutely. And all of a sudden, I literally couldn't get out of bed. And I mean, up until this point, I had taken stuff every single day, and I had drank every single night that I would leave work. So much so, and I was in the waitressing or restaurant business, so literally I lived in restaurants, and you could be trashed all day long, all night long in restaurants. And I would be at work though, and I would card somebody at TGI Fridays, and I would shake so hard that their ID would go in my hand, and I would have I worked out this thing where I'd lean down, and I wouldn't even look at their ID. I'd probably serve so many people that were not, and I would just be like, okay. And it wasn't until I got sober that I was like, oh my God, I withdrew from alcohol every single day. Every single day, because I did whatever during the day, but I drank the moment I left. And so I'm sorry, I'm trying not to dwell too much in the drinking. So the way that progressed for me was I no longer was employable. All of a sudden, I lost every restaurant job, and it takes a lot sometimes to lose those. And I mean, I was falling downstairs. I was doing stuff I never did. I was having people meet me. I was very obvious, and it was very messy at work. I remember. So here's a good example. I worked at this one place that did split shifts. So you worked in the morning, you worked at night. It was a big old steakhouse. It was really fancy. I went across the street to the bar on lunch and would get doubles of vodka and Red Bull because it's an energy drink and it's lunch, it's fine. So I'd go back after drinking however many of those, because they were 2 for 1, right? So I would drink however many of those, go back to work. And I remember being there one night, and this really preppy girl was like, I hate when people think they can get away with stuff at work. And I'm like, she's not talking about me. She was talking about me. I reek of alcohol. I got fired really soon after that. There were way worse stories at that restaurant. But so I lost this is when things started happening. I lost the big relationship that I cared about at the time. That's one thing with me. In between relationships, I was an absolute mess. The way I grew up with my dad, I really was always looking for acceptance, especially with men. And so there were so many unhealthy behaviors. I just didn't understand how a healthy relationship worked. And then there were times where I did have actual relationships that were with good people. I got really lucky that I had a couple of longer term relationships that were with good people. But I promise those didn't last, and I did end up messing those up. And that last one was really messy. And that's when I lost the beautiful apartment that I'd worked so hard to get. Had to go back and live with my mom, which I swore I never would do. That was the one ultimate thing I was never going to do. My poor mom could not handle me. I mean, I'd come home drunk in the middle of the night, and I remember one time trying to turn her TV on, and it was that loud static. I don't know what I was doing. And she comes out, and she's crying, and she actually said to me, you're just like your father. And everything in me was what do you even mean by that? But I knew what she meant, and it really hurt. And, my poor mom, that was when she was really faced with it the most. As a kid, she ignored it, I think. And so eventually she kicked me out, and I lost that. She got me a little apartment. I lost that apartment. That was an absolute mess. There were times where I sat in that apartment, and I looked around. And I went from being able to hold my own, I went from being able to be the one that did the most and drank everybody on the table and that was my thing, to slumped down in my own apartment watching people rob me blind right in front of me and taking all my favorite stuff. And there was just nothing I could do. I physically couldn't. And I remember one time looking down and thinking I don't belong here. And it hit me. And then I couldn't change it. I could not picture something else, though. This world had become so normal. There was nothing else. Also, my disease, the way my disease talks to me is it says, I hate me. I hate me. I hate me. And so, that was one of the things, I was talking about my mind always going. My mind was always you are so stupid. You are so dumb. They hate you. That was stupid, weird thing you just did in front of those people. I'll tell you, my mind still does that once in a while. It is not the same. But when it gets loud, that's my disease, because that's what I drank over. I quieted that. Like, I needed that to stop. And then I drank so much to erase the horrible things that I did, you know? And so then it became like I was drinking to erase. That was it. Like, I did not want to feel, I did not want to be, I needed to be not present at all times. And at the very end, you know, I won't tell you the whole story, but at the very end, I should not remember the last day, and I think God is the only reason I remember the last day. I took so much and did so much and drank so much and was with so many strange men and so many weird people over the course of an entire day. I should not have made it. I got fired that day for doing all of these things at work, and then went to the bar across the street, continued drinking, and so anyways, 10 a.m. the next morning, I wake up in a car with a pizza delivery guy who had picked me up off the side of the street in Pompano. And if any of you have been to Pompano, I did not belong in Pompano. Like, I should not have been on the street alone in the middle of the night with some strange delivery guy rescuing me. And he did. He rescued me because I was alive and I was safe, honestly. And I called my best friend, that best friend that I had started all this with so long ago. By the way, side note, she did not stop at 18, and she kept stealing. She walked in the front door, and she took all your stuff of strangers. And so she was a multiple felon. So my best friend was getting out of prison, she was getting out of Land O'Lakes jail. Somehow she ended up over here from over there. And I just had no one else to call at that point, and so I called her. She happened to be out of jail. And I just said, I have nowhere else to go. I have nothing to do. Like, I wasn't even asking for help. I was just empty. And she was like, oh my God, I can come get you. I'm on my way back literally right now to visit my mom. And we have room. It was a little bitty truck. It was one of those trucks that does not have a back seat. She was like, we have room for you. And I actually have an apartment and a room you can stay in. First of all, every single piece of this was a miracle. Tina having a freaking apartment and room in the truck. And first of all, we never drove. Nobody wanted to teach me how to drive. I was trashed. The few times people tried to teach me how to drive, it changed real quick. Like, they got me out of that driver's seat real fast. That was not a thing. So I did not drive. Tina did not drive. I could tell you some funny stories about that, but I won't. So the fact that she was getting a ride to Fort Lauderdale in that moment, like, everything kind of aligned. And so I said, okay. And she said, okay, you just got to go to AA. Whatever, okay. And that's how it started. And so on the ride back, I told Tina, you know, I'll quit doing drugs, because obviously that's the problem. But I'm not going to quit drinking. Like, that's normal. People normally drink, right? And she was like, okay, we'll see how that works in AA. And so, I mean, I tried. I bought a couple oldies, like, I don't know if they're quarts or 40s, I don't know, but I literally had those big old bottles in her closet in that little apartment. And she was like, we can smell them. You know that, right? We hear them. They're clinking. So I still tried for a few days, but, you know, I got there and I went through every single withdrawal on Tina's couch. And I had never done that before. I had gotten off of certain drugs, but I had never gone through the withdrawal of alcohol, and that was heavy. And so I was completely empty, and that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me about early sobriety was I was so lonely, and I was so empty. Like, my insides hurt. I was so empty. And we started going to Tropical Attitudes when it was where Main Street Survivors is. And we would walk from the Cherry Court Apartments on Trouble Creek and Grand, and we would walk all the way up to the Tropical Attitudes. Hour walk there, hour walk back, hour at the meeting, 3 hours sober. And that was kind of how we started pacing it. Was, you know, and I don't know, I don't remember that first meeting. I do remember, I was 25. I looked around that room. First of all, I showed up like we were going to the club. I did not understand the assignment. So So I thought I was supposed to look cute. I did not look cute either. This was the warped cute of alcoholism. So I'm still wearing I still wear glitter eyeshadow, but I had a lot of glitter eyeshadow on. And my little tube top and everything. And so I walk into that, you can picture a noon meeting. It's an eclectic group. And I looked around what are we doing here? This is weird. And then they said things that I understood. I'm like, what is this? Why do I relate to this weird old guy in the corner? And I did. So for that first 9 months, the only thing I did right was I kept coming. That's what I did right. I kept coming. Over that time, I kept making these little mistakes. I had these little relapses, but I didn't tell you were little relapses. So I kept picking up chips. I kept coming in and just counting down, You guys kept welcoming me. I was good. But my life was slowly getting better. It was still getting better because I wasn't fully living like I had been. But these little instances were coming up. I met a guy on a bus. Hey-o, you don't have to drive. I'm good with just a guy, whatever. So I was still practicing my old habits. And that was the thing, still hanging out with the same old people, places, and things. And guess what? He smoked pot. And guess what? I ended up smoking pot. So what these little things were doing, these little relapses, every single one normalized this behavior for me. So then one day I walk into work and, the cute guy that works there is trashed. And I'm like, that's not fair. He can come to work like that and he's fine. I see him every day. He's fine. So I can do that, right? I went from 0 to 100 the moment I convinced him to help me get trashed. And I hated myself again. One night, I did so many stupid things. One night. And the next morning, I woke up and I hated me so much. And I couldn't look in the mirror. And it was like I finally understood and conceded to my innermost self, I cannot do it like other people. Because when I do, I go to the porn store with my boss or sleep with my neighbor who I had been avoiding actively for, how did he know, that day? So, but these things were the things that I drank over because I hated that I did them. And so the moment so I had this ugly, disgusting, and I'm telling you, it did not look pretty when I was 25. I mean, I came in with a thing on my head because I had busted my head that last night on the bar, falling down the bar and just going on like everything was normal. So I came in with a crack on my forehead. But this time, everything looked better, but it was that emotional bottom that I never wanted to feel again. And so I started listening to you guys, and I did whatever you told me. And at that point, I'm telling you, that's the first time I started calling women. That was the moment where I remember calling a woman for help almost immediately. And there was something about women. We know when you're not fully in yet, and it's like, okay, well, I'm here when you're ready. They did that for me, because the moment I showed the women I was ready, oh my God, they welcomed me with open arms. And they just responded to me so much so. And it was the moment I started moving in the right direction, every single thing fell into place. And I started I started hearing at meetings, the steps are the answers to all your problems. The steps are the answers to all your problems. The steps are, So finally I'm like, okay. I had tried the steps the first time. And me and my sponsor, and we sat down and so first of all, this lady did teach me how to drive. I would never do that. I don't know. She taught me how to drive in sobriety. She deserves a gold medal. But she was amazing for stuff like that. She was amazing for this mom stuff that I had missed out on. But the steps, she was like, okay, we did one, you did one, we did one, you did one. Okay, two, you did two, we talked about it, you did two, we did two. Okay. I had no idea what happened. It flew by me. I had no idea what we did for those steps. If you asked me, to this day, I have no idea what we did. So I kind of had it in me that I needed to work. I needed physical work. I needed something to write about. I needed work. And I heard this lady, I found work, I'm telling you. I heard this lady constantly talking about all the work she did with her sponsors, all the work that this was a grown woman, and she's talking about her sponsor, having her do this, this, and this. And I'm like, dang. Well, I asked her, all the young girls were asking her, honestly, at that time. And I was like, let me back up. I had gotten fired by a previous sponsor. So in this time period, I was also going to another fellowship, and this sponsor suggested I stop talking to the boy I had just met. And I didn't. And I was like, I don't know why, but I want him in my life. He's right there. I was like, I don't know why, but I don't want to stop talking to him. And I understood, you're telling me that like this is a big deal, but I'm telling you, I want to work these steps. So why won't you work these steps with me? And I'm not telling you this was the right way. We learned all the reasons. We can go into them if you need that. Why you shouldn't date in the first year. It is hard. We had no idea what we were doing. We fought for this. But for some reason, I didn't want to let it go. And so I ended up finding this other sponsor who was willing to work those steps with me. And we got through, and I'm telling you one thing, man, she was like, you're going to understand these steps. You're going to understand them. You are going to know the principles behind them. And when someone asks you, did you work step one? You're going to be like, yeah, and this is what we did. And I'm telling you, we did that. So we got through the steps. Oh, the other thing, she was a single mom, and she was busy, and she had multiple sponsees. I chased her. I chased that sobriety. Part of that, because that time period we were watching, so both of us were young when we got here. We're watching all of our friends go out. All of them. All of them were relapsing. All of them were getting, they had better plans than the program, right? So that was scaring me to death. And I asked her, like, we got past step 12, and I'm like, it blew my mind that my own sponsee sisters, who I loved, were going out, because I'm like, I'm doing the same steps as them. I don't understand. And I was like, how do I make sure that that's not me? And she's like, Jordan, you're the only one here asking me how to not let that happen. So I learned to keep coming back to her over and over again and keep working. And that was, and I had to chase her down. She couldn't come to meet me. I got the next one. And that followed on forever in my recovery. So fast forward, we get married, and everything was beautiful. And then we had babies immediately. And so it's not that it wasn't beautiful, but I have this thing where I become insane the moment I get pregnant. And my husband had no idea how to handle that. And so it was not pretty. And immediately, we got pregnant probably on our wedding night, and immediately it got hard. Immediately. And in that year, we decided to move to North Carolina. So we changed everything from this home base and moved up to North Carolina. And when we did that, it was kind of like a surrender thing for me, because here I am. I mean, I'm a city girl at this point. Like, I'm from Fort Lauderdale. Like, I lived in downtown Fort Lauderdale, and we're going to Reedsville, North. Now, that's a small town, dude. They have a stoplight. No, not Reedsville, Ruffin. Ruffin has the stoplight. So he takes me to this little bitty tiny tobacco farm in town, and everybody knows everybody. The whole family lives there. Like, it was a lot for me to adjust to. I felt uncomfortable in my own skin again, and I did not feel like I belonged. And so immediately we did find AA, but it was that small town AA, which there's nothing wrong with, except the same 5 people were at the only meetings there were each night. And there was not a woman with more time than me. So again, I had to chase recovery, and I had to drive to the big city, which was 40 minutes away. And in that time, I was so depressed that the doctor, for my second pregnancy, so we did it again. In my second pregnancy, the doctor was like, you have to take antidepressants because your child would rather you be alive than not make it here. And I remember being on the ground praying for God to take whatever was going on away, and he didn't. And like things kept going on, and something in me shifted that I understood I had to chase AA again. And so I had been going to those small town meetings, but that's what really triggered me to go to Greensboro and find a really good sponsor. And she was amazing. And God worked for me, man. I found sponsor after sponsor, and they kept moving. And so I kept changing sponsors. It wasn't intentional, but just worked out that way. And every single one, we get to like 5, and then we get to step 5 again, and then the third one, we get to step 5 again. So finally, the fourth one, I'm like, I am really good on 3, 4, 5. Like, I'm really good on that. I mean, at this point, I had like 7 or 8 years, and I'm like, let's talk about 10, 11, 12. And she's like, that's so cute. We're going to start at 1. And she then did the most work with me that I've ever done with someone, and it was incredible. This is when the steps saved my life, and I have goosebumps because this is when the steps saved my life in sobriety. That was when I started learning how to stop worrying so much about what you weren't giving me and start looking at what I'm not doing. Or what I am doing. And that translated into so many relationships, because so often it's, you're not doing this for me. Let's talk about Chad. You're not doing the dishes. You're not supporting me emotionally. But I wasn't either. I was fighting. I was not pleasant. I was not welcoming when he got home. I had behaviors. So this was when I learned that lesson in that big book of like, we are not allowed justifiable anger. It doesn't matter if my anger is justified. I am responsible for my behavior no matter what. And, so honestly, over the next 4 or 5 years up there, we ended up getting to an amazing place, probably a lot of this step work, but both of us were on our own journeys. And suddenly he wanted to move back. And I don't mean to put it on him, but he was ready. I finally settled in. I finally had people, and I finally found like my women's meeting in Greensboro, and let's get away from my family. Which it was time. And we came back, and dude, we came back to this. Like, we came back because we missed our people. Dude, Chris Kelly and Melanie Kelly, they had a phone, I think it was a tablet on a chair before that was a thing. This was before Zoom meetings. They had to include us in a group meeting from North Carolina. Like, the people that loved us, our rocks, our foundation were here. And we came back, we moved away from his family and chose to come back to our friends that had become our family. And one of the things I didn't talk about, I always heard stick with the winners, and I didn't love that saying. I think it sounds kind of mean, because other people aren't losers, but I did understand really fast. I had to surround myself with people that are actually working this program. If you are not working this program, like, you are dangerous for me. That normalizes a lot of unhealthy behaviors, or even just that I don't have to do this. That's not okay for me. And so I had to find, and when we were younger, we've surrounded ourselves. I mean, we were in our 20s, we were hanging out with 65-year-olds who had 30 years. And those were literally our best friends. And so when we came back, we really came back to that foundation. And even when we came back, we had so many more lessons still to learn. And, we had fought for every dime that we had. We had literally worked so hard. He was a handyman's assistant when I met him, and I was I worked in restaurants, and so we had nothing to begin with. And so we really fought. Some of the things for me that happened along the way, I did end up getting my GED. I did get my associate's degree. I did learn how to drive. That was a big thing. We both were continuously kind of moving up professionally. And when we got back, though, we were still living in this scarcity, this, like, it's not enough. Because we had been in that thought process, that lifestyle for so long, like, it's not enough, it's not enough. So everything was scarcity. Everything was, I got to do more, I got to work harder, I got to, it's never going to be enough. Or, the other shoe is always going to drop. And, that's what we were living in. And I remember one night we were doing I was doing the 12-step with someone. And I was reading, how it talks about we don't go to work to make money. We go to work to be of service to God. And it turns everything on its head. And it reminds us, it's such a beautiful reminder of what we're supposed to be doing, guys. it was such a beautiful reminder that like we started having these conversations, and I swear both of us shifted like in that time period of understanding we are not living in scarcity. We are in abundance. Like we have everything that we need. It was no longer that we were constantly like feeling like we had to make up for something, you know? The spiritual side of AA, which is all of AA, if you would have asked one of my sponsors, you know, Tina used to say, like, I always thought the hardest part for you would be the God thing. And something about the fact that when I got here, I knew I never asked for help. Like when it talks about that in the big book, like I was not asking for help. I was not trying to change the way I was living. Instead, like it just happened and worked out that way, right? And so I knew a higher power had to be part of that. And so then, you know, as time went on, I remember this moment where I think I'd already done all 12 steps, and I was reading, I don't remember what part in the big book it is. I have holes in my brain. But, and it was talking about, you know, we have to get rid of this selfishness or it kills us. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm still selfish. Like I am going to die. And I probably had like 2 years sober. And somehow in that moment, I read the spiritual experience in the back, and it hit me. Something in that spiritual experience I understood. It talked about a change of thinking that I had. I did not have any burning bush thing that happened, right? But I did not think the same, and I knew it. Like I was the most negative, just ugly on the inside person, really. I turned it into humor, but it was not nice. And the reality is, like, I did not think that way anymore. And so, like, that's what hit me. I had had that spiritual experience. And so moving into later, you know, honestly today, to this day, I look around and I am amazed that this is the world I live in. I genuinely, if I could give you anything, it's that I love AA. I love AA. And I thought, when I was new, I promise you, I thought that was the stupidest thing. Grateful alcoholic, must be nice. And, but I am so grateful for my life, exactly as it is, even when it's not pretty. Because to this moment, like, and I am not perfect at this, but I genuinely try to practice these principles in my affairs. And because of that, you know, I get to live this beautiful life. I give this program back. I work with other sponsees. I very much so believe in service work. To this day, I chase my sponsor down and I meet her. That woman, it's like a clock. Every other Wednesday, I'm at her house, unless it's some major life event. And she knows it. And, you know, these are the rocks of my recovery. And then there's the people that we get to surround ourselves with, which we are so blessed to have. All I ever wanted was to belong. All I ever wanted was for someone to like me. And today, like, I don't have to yearn for, I hung out with people that didn't care who I was or whether I lived. I begged them to like me. And here, I have people that genuinely love me for exactly who I am. Exactly who I am. Flawed. I show up to my sponsors. I tell her all the ugly things I thought or did, and that woman loves me. And she tells me that, and she reminds me how far I've come, even since I've known her. And I don't know, it is such a beautiful thing that we get to do this today. We get to work these steps. We get to live, who would have thought, I would say, get to live a spiritual experience. Like that's just incredible to me. So yeah, I think that's everything.